So today's session is all about managing change and those stages that you have to go through in order to manage that change process, and how real-life situations from members of the team, but also how you can begin to identify which stage you're at and then being able to make those changes and sitting in that denial phase, which is the first step. And one of the examples we used is the self-development, the reading, just not doing it because don't like reading, don't like doing this, haven't got time, haven't got this, and that's the denial phase. Whereas that self-development and self-improvement is so damn important. But here's right, so following on from the training of the 7th wave, I want to talk about managing change, which is a session that they did. So the stages of managing change are denial, realization, resistance, anger, letting go, searching, understanding, and then changes internalized. So you can go up and down the scale, and you can go from change and internalized right back to resistance and anger. So what I want you to think about is within work, where within the elements of your job, what stages are you at within different bits and pieces with regards to change of your process of selling and understanding what you need to do in order to get to the next level, revenue production, etc., etc. So if you think about things that either need to change or things you are going through change at the moment, I want you to look at where you sit on those scales. So and what would need to happen. So it could be that you sit in denial. Let's say your revenue targets. Well, for neither of you, it is well beyond you, but let's say your revenue target was too far ahead. Let's say that we're retainers, with our experience of selling retainers and how do we sell retainers, where do we sit? Do we sit in denial phase? Do we sit in probably anger at the retainer process, on the BD call with the client relationships? Where do you kind of sit on potential of them? It may be that some of them you're not on that process of change with it, but is there elements that you have where you're going through a level of change at the moment within your work? Has anybody got any initial ideas?
I'd say with the stuff we're doing with Steve, and specifically the things me and him are focusing on, which is the directing the conversation of the intro, and then that summary setting, and then also the challenging of a client. Okay,
where do you say you're at with that?
Summary setting, I'd say I'm at, what was the one at the bottom of the curve?
Letting go of the old process.
Letting go.
Okay, so letting go of the old process. Where are you at with the other steps of that?
I'd say probably at 2 with the other ones, but not
realisation of utilising them.
What's number 3?
So denial, realisation, resistance and anger, letting go, searching, and then understanding, and then changes internalised.
I'd say I'm at resistance, but not me trying to resist it.
The old stuff.
Just trying to break through.
Okay. What stage, of the stages there, where do you think that your stage is in denial? Where do you think that you're in denial of what changes need to be made?
My book reading.
Okay.
I know I need to read my books, but sometimes I can't.
So what's the bullshit story you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it?
I don't have enough time.
Okay, what else?
I shouldn't need time.
What else do you tell yourself? Don't like reading, I'm not a reader, not the kind of person who reads.
I struggle to have the attention span to read.
Right, struggle to have the attention span to read.
I fall, so like this puts me to sleep and you just switch off.
Okay. So when we're sat in the denial phase, what we've got to think about is, would that element of our training and development, if that would be, would it improve our game?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason that we're not doing it, is it that genuinely we can't read? Right. Is it that we don't believe that by reading we would learn?
No.
Okay. So it's that we're choosing not to do it because we're prioritising something else on top of that. And that might be going out, that might be lying, that might be staying up a little later, whatever it is that we're not putting the prioritisation of in to be able to allocate that time. So you both commute in. What are you doing on your commute in? I don't actually know if you're reading at the moment, H, but if that's the ideas of how do you pair something with it? If you're commuting into work, could you read then? If you're commuting home from work, could you read then? Could you, if you, I know neither of you got a dog, although I think your dad does.
Yeah.
So going out, so what I do is I'll pair my reading with walking the dog and taking Theodore out, and I'll make sure I can pair both. I'll listen to a podcast, and I've set it every time I get in my car. The podcast triggers to play, regardless of what YouTube's on, anything. The podcast will override everything and play in the car. So I'm always listening to a podcast on my way in, and I've got to manually change that. And you can do that via shortcuts. So how do you come out of the denial phase of, or the phase of I'm not doing this, and how do you move towards that change and the realization that actually, if I want to achieve what I want to achieve, then I'm going to have to start reading, or I'm going to have to start doing this, or I'm going to have to start doing that. Same with fitness, same with health, etc., is where we're in the denial phase. It'll never happen to me. I'll never get cancer. I'll never be one of those people that gets this. I'll never get ill because I don't do this. I won't have any of that because I'm alright. Or it doesn't matter the fact that I'm X or Y or this, or I don't train, or I do train, or whatever. It's that denial phase of I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this. It's how do you move yourself from denial to realization, and then as quickly as possible to the changes internalized. So when you get into the office in the morning, does that give you an opportunity to read? Does that give you an opportunity to consume information? And if you set yourself to read 2 pages, and now that might not seem a lot, but it's more than what you're doing right now. So it's taking you through that process.